possible.
That would be good information to get a guest in here on that and genetically modified food, because we don't need to stand by and just let this continue. Now, I've got two pieces of news that I want to share with you today, and I want everyone to take a good listen to this. Now, this is being reported in the Daily Newscaster, which is from Chicago, Illinois. The headline reads, "Is FEMA and DHS preparing for mass graves and martial law near Chicago?" This is on our website. An Indiana County municipal officer in the vicinity of Chicago reveals the contents of meetings with FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security. The initial request seemed reasonable enough when FEMA asked the county officials to prepare a hazard mitigation plan to deal with flooding, fires, high winds, and tornadoes. But as the required meeting and calls with FEMA and DHS continued over a 2-year period, their request became more unusual, raising suspicions of the county officials. Now, this is dated February 13, 2009. "We want to know every important thing in this county. We want to know where the police departments are, where the weapons are stored, hazardous material, where we can land a helicopter, where are the airports, how big a plane can you land at the airport, where are all the bridges, where are all the power stations, where are all the generating stations, where are all the substations." They literally wanted to know where everything was. I'm sitting there thinking, man, if it was ever martial law, this kind of information is exactly the kind of stuff they're going to want to know. We're just laying it all out for them right now. During the legally mandated meetings held with FEMA and DHS, different disaster scenarios were revealed to county officials. In late December 2008, municipal officers were invited to Indianapolis for a briefing on the state of Indiana. They were told if industry were to collapse, for example GM going bankrupt, resulting in mass unemployment, a depression would soon follow, and municipalities could expect to lose 40% of their funds. Every county in the nation would be required to prepare a hazard mitigation plan. The county should prepare a plan to vaccinate the entire population within 48 hours and practice the plan several times. FEMA inquired to where mass graves could be placed in the county, and would they accept bodies from elsewhere. The Sheriff's Department, via the State Sheriff Association, was told that no .223 ammunition rounds would be available, as the military would be purchasing all stocks. The county was asked to make plans for hardening of police and fire stations, putting in hardened bunker-type buildings around the town. The county was also asked to make plans for the possibility of up to 400,000 refugees from Chicago. And again, this is a Indiana County municipal official reporting this on the Daily Newscaster. I thought that was just unbelievable. We wanted to report that to you. And in the good news this week, I want to get this out there today. Mississippi passes legislation protecting gun owners during martial law. This is February 11, 2009. Mississippi lawmakers have passed a bill to protect the state's residents during martial law. On the Office of Lieutenant Governor of Mississippi's website, Phil Bryant announces the passage of SB 2036. The legislation restricts the power of a peace officer to confiscate firearms and ammunition in an emergency or during a time of martial law, according to the website. It is significant that Lieutenant Governor Bryant mentions the law applies to martial law. Mississippi Senator Merle Flowers authored the bill and referred it to the judiciary on January 6th. It passed the Senate on February 4th, according to the Mississippi Bill Status website. The Act amends Section 33-7-303 of Mississippi Code of 1972 and explicitly restricts the power to confiscate firearms and ammunition in an emergency. So, if you think that we're here preaching gloom and doom, this is in the news. Of course, it's not on your television, and I seem, a lot of times people seem to say, well, you know, if that was the truth, the TV would tell me. But you can go and look this up for yourself. Hooray for Mississippi. They're doing one thing right. The state of North Carolina seems like they can't get on board and do anything. They're not one of the states declaring their sovereignty under the 10th Amendment either. Any thoughts on that, Brian?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was thinking about that when you were reading the other article. Actually, that's wonderful news. Hopefully, like you say, North Carolina would have the guts to do something very similar.
My faith in North Carolina is darn weak.
This was by Sharon Astic that I wanted to read. This is a good little insight into the financial situation. I'm starting to feel I can't compete with reality. Any actual attention to events as they unfold points up the fact that my own doomiest imaginings are being wildly exceeded. Let's see, California is broke, functionally insolvent, and has stopped paying for just about everything, including its state police. Remember how often they trumpeted that they were the 6th largest economy in the world? Well, that's kind of like saying the UK is insolvent. Oh, and that actually might not be so far from the truth also, since they just had to nationalize their banking system. We've lost at least 300,000 jobs in the past 2 weeks. The New York Times may be out of business by spring, while neither rain nor sleet nor hail will keep the Postal Service from its appointed rounds. Money probably will, and they're talking about cutting out Saturday deliveries. Homelessness, hunger are rapidly on the rise, as are suicide and murder rates. There's rioting in Russia, China, Greece, around the world, massive demonstrations in France and Britain. Australia is seeing record high temperatures, while many of the rest of us struggle with record lows. California's drought may be the worst in a century, and already the hungry are in the deepest sufferers of the food crisis. The New York Times, Fortune magazine, Bloomberg, they're all starting to use words like biblical proportions, deep depression, and apocalypse.
Yeah, we are living and witnessing some very interesting times, to say the least. We are going to go to the phones here in just a second. We had an email. I want to get that in today. Just a comment on 9/11. In the history of the world, the only time that 3 buildings have ever collapsed perfectly straight down at free fall speed, allegedly from fire, are the Twin Towers and WTC-7, all on the same day. Yet people still refuse to believe that there is any suspiciousness about it. And that's from Jim. Thank you for emailing us. You can email onair@realnewsradio.com. One thing that I wanted to say, there's been a lot of talk about the fairness doctrine since the Democrats are back in power. Representative Gene Green and Mike Conaway, both from Texas, have reintroduced the local Radio Freedom Act in support of the radio broadcast industry. Resolution 49 recognizes both the significance of radio and the important role radio broadcasters play in their local communities, and expresses opposition to the creation of a new fee or performance tax on local radio stations. I urge everyone to keep up with this. There is a concerted attack on local radio, broadcasting the truth, especially if we see a fairness doctrine or something like that come back on. So we're going to continue with the news, but if you'd like to call in, 704-873-1400 and 336-499-0681. We'd like to take your phone calls for the rest of the broadcast. We're not taking any commercials today.
27,000 to work on Pentagon's image. In a year-long investigation, the Associated Press discovered that over the past 5 years, the money the Pentagon spends on its propaganda at home and abroad has grown by 63% to at least $4.7 billion in 2009. This year, the Pentagon will employ 27,000 people just for recruitment, advertising, and PR, almost as many as the total 30,000 person workforce as the U.S. State Department. I mean, given our financial situation, do we really need 27,000 people working for the Pentagon as far as propaganda? And I had to go to Russia Today to find this information. I had to go to a Russian news source to see this. This should be on the front page of the New York Times.
Yes, exactly. And again, our phone numbers are 704-873-1400 and 336-499-0681 is the Davie County number if you'd like to call in and comment. And what you're talking about there, it has been in some of the press, not the mainstream, that the Pentagon was spending a massive amount of money creating what looked like news websites for Iraq. They were creating propaganda,
right.
Fake news, basically. We got a phone call. Hey, you're on the Real News.
Yeah, I wanted to call in, and you're talking about the representatives across the country, state representatives that are declaring sovereignty. I think it's important in North Carolina. People need to contact that, and we need to do that here now.
Amen.
Absolutely.
I don't know why North Carolina has not done that, but basically, if you call up your representative, I'm trying to find. They make it kind of hard to find who your representative is.
Yeah, they don't want to be contacted, it seems like, and the reason I said my face week in North Carolina, I run a small business here, and I have for 20 years.